can leave that one up there if you want. Can I have channel 2 back up, please? We're actually going to do something impromptu because we've been so efficient. We have optimized our mornings. I'm going to give everybody the opportunity to do Q&A right now, but I'm going to start with a question for you all. Everybody happy for Copilot to start optimizing their plant? It's far more complex than you could possibly have imagined. It's why Anthropic are in #1 position in LLMs right now. They chose to domain specialize. They've solved coding, right? It's outrageous how performant they are. They're adding 10 billion a quarter in revenue because they have a domain-specific intelligence. And it's domain-specific intelligences that are going to power the next epoch of optimization. Self-driving, drug discovery, material science, energy. I'm going to, Dan, Sam, do you guys want to come and join me? Arjun too, actually, please. Because we do have time for Q&A, so why not? We may have told you everything there is to know, and you may just be, your heads are spinning, you don't know what an agent is, or how it's different from Copilot, why we still use language when we're domain specific. Is it an LLM? Is it something different? All these questions are valid. Please throw your hand up. I will walk amongst you and repeat the question over the mic. Yes, sir. Let's do it. I'll come round. Oh, do we have a walking mic? Nikhil, you're so organized. Thank you.
Sorry. Thanks. Hi, I'm Ed Reed. I'm from Energy Voice. Super interesting presentation. Really interesting ideas being thrown around. Like we've heard a lot about hallucinations. Yes. Obviously, like that's a problem that we see in sort of outside the room. What's your policy on hallucinations? How do they occur? What should you be watching?
Excellent. Let's ask the PhD.
Well, I think you should also jump in on this afterwards from an engineering delivery standpoint. But look, ultimately, hallucinations are essentially either concocted information that didn't exist to hit the like ratio for what humans prefer as an answer, or if it's genuine missing information. Those are really the two causes for hallucinations. Now, in our case, none of our models are tuned for human likeness. So we're eliminating the reason to write an answer purely to optimize for human-like ratio or sounding like a human. That's gone in our case. So our primary risk of hallucination essentially forms from information that doesn't exist. And the way we counter that is by saying we don't answer anything we don't have a source for. And that's a hard rule we actually set in Orbital. And we do extensive testing with the customer as well before we say it's ready for live as part of our delivery process, so that they can also vet that it's not creating information that doesn't exist about the plant and is rerouted to the actual sources they have. And one of the key difficulties we've even had in deploying is some of the information that they serve with Orbital is actually outdated, but the information that they have in their head is updated to what currently exists. So they see Orbital's answers as hallucinations because it's in the past. It's no longer the reality of the world that they live in today. And that indeed has to also be corrected for as part of the process as well. So those are really the 3 layers we have to work with.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I say is that we try to keep our systems deterministic wherever we can, and then generative where we need to be. So i.e., if we're trying to solve problems with agents that already exist, and they're tested agents, then they have enough context to actually solve the problem. So you can think of it like, it might be a bad analogy, but I'll try. Think of it like rocks, which are the deterministic system, then you fill sand to create a wall, and the sand is the generative system, and the rocks are the deterministic systems. So the sand is actually just connecting everything together.
Is my mic still live? Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, good.
Would anyone like an interpretation for the non-gifted? Mike. So language models are the models that we all use day to day to write emails or invent bedtime stories for people. They're designed to please humans. They're designed to pass a Turing test. They're designed to, you see at the bottom, thumbs up, thumbs down. That's why they were designed and how they were designed. Orbital, because it's domain specific, has been designed to be accurate. where it does not have a verifiable source, it's going to give you a confidence score. And it's going to tell you, hey, check this. We don't believe this to be 100% accurate because we could not find sources for everything that we're telling you here today. So it's kind of same way that self-driving works. We also have the benefit of operating on a very, very narrow domain. Like large language models, they need to know kind of a lot about everything. We need to know everything about one thing, which makes us, gives us the ability to be much more deterministic in our inference. Andy.
Yeah, so good morning, Andy Webster, KBR. So a lot of education in the room, and I really liked, Sam, how you took us through what you guys are learning and how that's transforming the product you're making. The challenge on the opposite side of the table is the organizations we're taking this into, the learning they need to have. So where are engineers who I presume you want to use this product? Which schools are they learning how to use AI? Which companies, how are they learning how to use AI? Obviously, it's a loaded question, but there seems to be an obvious problem because you're presenting something that's radically new with a whole bunch of even verbiage that we're not common to use. How do we overcome that adoption, that learning challenge?
So, Martin, hi. We are Martin's one of the leadership team here at the Energy Institute. We're not here by accident. When Dan joined the business a little while ago, one of the main things he identified was if we're going to bring AI, well, like Sam was saying, if we're going to bring AI into scale into the energy industry, people need to trust it. Who do they trust? Who's available to trust right now? It's salespeople. It's people like us telling you that you should buy our AI because it's the best AI. Those are the wrong people to trust, right? And I think that means you should trust us even more because we're saying that. But who do you trust? Bodies like the Energy Institute, who are set up to be impartial, offer advice, guidance, frameworks on how to buy, how to assess, how to benchmark, how to measure value of these new and emerging technologies in the sector. So we actually brought the problem into the Energy Institute and said, hey, we think the industry is at risk from salespeople, like most industries. Where there needs to be an independent body that is advising on how to assess these technologies, how to deploy them safely, how to scale them, how to measure them, and how to assess value creation. So we're on that path. We've started the work. Later on this year, Energy Institute will be publishing its first set of guidelines, and that's going to continue indefinitely, so that there will then be a body, a repository, a framework, an understanding of just which AI you should be using for which tasks, how to buy it, how to assess it, how to measure value created inside your organization. If any of the team would like to add to that, because I know...
Yeah. I think one of the key things to realize that the question you raised is actually, you're far ahead of time than what other people are actually asking. So kudos to you on that, because the reality is, it's just like the internet world. Right, people only learned about the internet world after when modalities became clear on how they can learn about it. And we're in that cusp right now where there are people that are building it at a rapid pace, but then there's not as many resources on learning about it and keeping up with it. And I think this is where, and I'm not just going to toot your horn or KBR's horn on this, but this is one of the things that we didn't discuss in your presentation, which is like KBR and the Insight Center was only the first center where we decided that we'll bring people in there to actually be trained and look at AI to vet, where other users also get that personal feel like I can trust this because there's also another engineer that's gone through it. But at the same time, it's them learning about how to make AI better and vice versa, because even we have things we don't know what we've explored within the data that is currently within these plants, beyond what we've currently done thus far. So the reality is that this is still a journey where we don't actually have a full answer yet, because we don't know what modalities will actually work, and we just have to take the first step in trying different modalities, whether that's using what's already worked or creating new ways, because even the current methods that are available right now clearly aren't keeping up pace with the change that is happening. So this is very much an open question that we just have to keep exploring and trying until we see what actually hits.
Yeah, I'll just say one thing to close, which is, I think you nailed it with the vocabulary point. I think it's how do you learn to translate? You've got highly technical specialist experts who have deep knowledge in engineering, and you've got equivalent experts in the AI field. That translation is actually at the heart of it. If you can explain it, engineers are bright enough. They will figure this out. But it's helping them understand the new vocabulary they need to learn. And I think, as Sam said, we're on that journey. As Cal said, we've got some plans, and I think we're going to keep learning. But we're not going to stand here and say we've got all the answers on that one.
Follow-up to the hallucinations and probably the comment at the end of the last presentation about the model adapting itself. How are you thinking about optimization in a world where potentially there's supply chain disruptions or changes in environmental conditions due to climate events that have never been seen before in a historic backtest, especially if you're suggesting something that has never been done before to a given plant? How are you going through that?
That's exactly what I want to achieve in Tier 3. I wish I had an answer for you because it would be built then, but I don't right now. But the way I see it is, there's really three types of learning strategies that are working right now in artificial intelligence. First is reinforcement learning, which is trial and error. Second is self-supervised learning, which is purely using the source of information that is coming to you and learning contextual relationships to make sense of them. And then the third is really the conventional way that we train, which still gives the best results, is supervised learning, which is actually telling it what the right answer is. So really, it's a combination of those three different types of learnings being combined into one, as opposed to just creating and doubling down on one being better. So for the example that you mentioned, what you just stated right now is there's different disparate sources of information. They are collected. It's not that they don't exist. It's just that they haven't been combined to find relationships for yet, right? So it's the case of saying, okay, how do I use something like self-supervised learning to be able to have curiosity to learn about what the relationships are between them, and combining them to the sources of information that I have coming from an actual plant today, and saying, okay, can I now trial and error my way to understanding how this relates to the other by able to predict what will happen next without actually seeing what happened next, even though I have the data, and reconstruct that event by purely looking at disparate information. And then using supervised learning to actually have a human come in and say, this was correct, this wasn't correct, and to basically complete that trifecta, right? The reality is that the most difficult part here actually isn't the ability to train a model to learn these things. It's how do I engineer these disparate information coming in one place? And my hedge is that we actually don't need to engineer them to come in one place. What we need to do is deploy a domain-specific model in those areas and let the models communicate with one another in a distributed architecture. That would be my approach, thus far. Does that answer your question?
Almost.
Okay.
Can I have mic 2, channel 2 on again? Check.
Can you hear me? Cool, awesome. So apologies, I've got jet lag. I was in Mumbai now 16 hours ago, so I took some notes on the plane. Have I understood it correctly? Yeah. Orbital governs the point of inference.
Can you dive a bit deeper into what those words mean to you?
Sure. So you've set up, can you make it as simple as possible for me, right? A model which basically does the stuff that it does, but it is ultimately responsible and accountable for the stuff that it does. And my broader observation would be, how does that work in, say, an organization's governance model?
Good question. So in terms of what Orbital actually does is it grounds every response to a particular task you're trying to solve and to the information that is available for that task. Nothing beyond that. Now, you can add other information so that it follows a particular method of answering to solve that particular task. And that can include governance. It's the case of what you define governance as. And you could probably answer more to this as well. For example, if I give the context from the plant deployments, their governance is their safety principles, their operating principles, and how the users actually interact day to day. That is a fixed model. And that actually is taken into account into Orbital, because there's no point recommending something that breaks that chain, because they will never be acted on.
No, for sure. So I mean, I exited Shell doing something completely different 14 months ago, right? Now my firm is looking at enterprise-level governance for AI.
Right.
Yeah, and the other entities that I've been running around talking to, etc., the challenges are all the same. Yeah. What you guys are doing, I should have prefaced my question before with this statement, is insanely good.
Well,
Right?
thank you.
It is amazing. But how the host ecosystem actually, first of all, becomes aware of it, how does it engage with it, and then what that operability and support profile looks like.
Right.
That's what I'm finding with the other entities I'm talking to. Everyone's just kind of going,
Yeah. Good question. Go for it.
I mean, I think, look, and this is, by the way, this is a conversation that Sam and I have been having on a regular basis. There's there's two parts to the problem. One part is what Sam's saying, which is, can we make it traceable? Can we make it explainable? Can we make it physics grounded? Can we make it
100%.
clear what the model's doing? Can we make sure the agentic flow is transparent? Can we make sure you can change it, as Arjun showed, to adjust it? Can you challenge the prompt? All of that is kind of in the tool. There's a second piece, which is outside the tool, which is exactly what you're saying, right? Because that whole process, yes, we can do all of that as a product, but it has to live within an enterprise governance framework. It has to live within guardrails, security profiles. It has to live within engineering work processes, assurance processes, and so on. We're spending a lot of time on that. What I didn't say is we're very intentionally not working with a lot of customers right now. That's a choice that we've made very explicit. And the reason is because we know that success in this industry looks like work tightly with a few customers, demonstrate it works on a few specific cases that are generalizable, make sure it's embedded in those workflows, and to Sam's last point, the value comes out from those organizations.
100%.
Once we're in that space, we then have a framework that we can use to scale with other organizations, leveraging, on the one hand, frameworks like Databricks, like I mentioned, which helps with the IT side of the world, but also learning how we can embed it into people organizations, which is equally important, which I think links to what Andy was asking, links to the work we're doing with the Energy Institute. To be successful, you have to do it all. You have to be IT deployable, cyber secure, robust, explainable, and have a killer model, and figure out the people chain. And that's what we're trying to figure out as an organization. Now, again, super candidly, we appreciate the comment. We all admit we're not there. But I think what we hopefully showed you today is that we're on a very clear path. We understand the problem. We've got strategies and tactics around each one of those areas. And we see a path to transformative value with what we're doing.
if I can be so bold as to
my mic on?
actually, for me to be a bit more clearer, what I've seen just today, it's awesome. It's heading in so many correct directions, from my perspective.
Yeah, I'm going to challenge you, Dan.
Go
I think, you're very good at being humble. Saying we're not there, we're there. We've solved it in multiple organizations for multiple use cases. Some of the largest, most heavily regulated, most, I would say, governance-aware organizations on the planet. We know how to do it. Scaling it rapidly, and scaling it with generalizable governance models, I think, comes later. But we are there. We understand how to do governance super well. How it's going to work at scale, sure, we'll get there. What's even cooler than governance is what we've discovered as we've deployed and begun to scale inside these organizations. We've come across operating philosophies that aren't written down, which are way more fun than governance is. It's like, okay, what's the philosophical approach to running this plant? Is it written anywhere? No, it's just my philosophy. Okay, could you tell us the philosophy or tell us the model? And this is a whole new layer of context that's being uncovered as Orbital begins to permeate inside these companies, which is way more fun. We might have a section on that next year, so check back in.
And I think say one more thing on that. I think when I say we're not done, what I mean is done is we're transforming the energy sector.
Oh, yeah.
We're not there yet.
Yeah.
But we're on the path.
Fuduma Jakub, Orlan. I would like to refer to the trust aspects. If the applied computing and the Orbital has already considered, let's say, the questions or prompts which were asked by couple different stakeholders at similar time. You mentioned your roadmap that you're gonna in tier 3 or 4th, you're gonna consider that. But right now, if the context based on the answer provided, for instance, 2 hours ago for CEO, is considered for the similar question asked 2 hours later by engineer.
Are you asking how current the context window is company-wide?
Or maybe if the Orbital providing such information that, hey, some other stakeholder has already asked that question, and at that time, I give him answer, blah, blah, blah. Right now, objective function has changed, or is the same, but the result, from my opinion, is...
That's a good question. Sorry, bear with me. My phone keeps vibrating, and it feels super weird. And it's just my mom asking me to get eggs on the way back. So your question, and I'm going to rephrase it, so correct me if I'm wrong, is more in the side of tier 3, which is the CEO has asked something, the goalpost has changed, the operator is also asking something similar, but will Orbital be able to connect the dots and realize that this goalpost has changed?
Yeah, or to avoid the collision that I made a decision because I asked 2 hours later.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we haven't built tier 3 yet, so I wouldn't be able to answer how this works in real world. But you would have to consider the chain of usage in order to determine, like, the moment you're trying to detect if the goalpost is changing, you would have to detect it from every single user, because everything follows what is known as a Markov chain, which basically is a clear rule that states whatever is the future probability of an action is based on the past probabilities and sequence of actions, right? So you would have to take that into consideration. Based on what someone said at what time and how that can impact the future answers I'm giving if the goalpost is indeed changing, according to that. But the nuance there is that it depends on the level of responsibility the action carries. It could also be that at the operator level, the action actually doesn't have a driving impact to the future goal that's been changed. Like, its contribution towards that goal is so minimal that actually it may not even have to change the answer that would come through. So it's very much dependent on what would be the state at that given time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, all. This has been incredibly interesting. I'm interested on your opinions on cognitive decline. So say operators, they're defining workflows, they're becoming increasingly trusting of those. They're 56 years old. Their intuition is the thing that's allowed you to define the workflow in the way it is. How do we bridge that position, the next generation, and a potential subservience to the intelligence of the AI, and make sure that the human in the loop aspect still keeps operations safe?
The
question.
King's College Philosophy Department and Humanities way down the road.
Let me say, go on.
I've got opinions on this. I'll go next. No, I want to hear you first so I can steal things.
I think what's really interesting, right, and I just want to play this out. The interesting point is, I really worry about that. It's a real concern. It's not what I'm hearing from customers. Customers are much more worried about the scarcity of talent that's coming through, the age of their current employee base, and whether or not they're going to be able to operate these assets in 10 years, given the exit of the experience from the industry. Now, I don't want to diminish that, right? In my view, it's an and story. I think we need to be able to capture the knowledge from the experts that we have in the businesses right now, and we need to make sure that we train them in a way that they're going to use the AI intelligently and in a human-in-the-loop manner, and in a way that doesn't make humans subservient to the super intelligence that understands the plant better than them. Because ultimately, it's a model. Models make mistakes. It's never going to be perfect. We need to make sure that we put the right safety, controls, assurance, vetting, challenge, and that has to encapsulate engineering expertise. And that, again, goes back to what I was saying about the workflow and humans together. The product needs to be really good at doing that. And we need to also think, and this is something that Sam and I, again, are talking about a lot, how can you make sure that the product encourages the human to think and doesn't simply give the answer indiscriminately? Because if you force that thinking process and that interaction through the workflow in the model, I think that's part of how you solve the problem. But I think it's a both and certainly there is a real need to have this type of intelligence.
I'll build on that now. So everything Dan said is true, and it's a very presidential answer, which is great. That's why you're here. That we're not built in a like Palantir-esque model. You can see we're very authentic, very transparent, very human as an AI organization. The concerns come. Look at the average age of frontline operator, 56. 80% drop in graduate data scientists applying for the hydrocarbon or even the energy sector in general over the past 10 years, right? Diminishing and declining talent base. So how do we keep Angela, the frontline operator's knowledge around for another 30 years to inform the next generation, or if there is no next generation, get to that autonomous facility? That's one concern, right? The second concern that you voiced was, okay, and are we outsourcing thought? Are we outsourcing risk? Are we outsourcing critical intelligence? Orbital doesn't do anything an operator doesn't do. So Orbital just compresses it. It improves the quality of the answer. But if you think about Orbital's real aim, it's to get you from one good decision this week to 10. So if we can get you to 10 or 20, Mr. or Mrs. Next Generation Frontline Operator, the system, the facility, the sector improves so much faster, and we get towards that transition point super, super fast. Very much like autopilot systems in Airbus, right? They're phenomenal. Their margin of error is less than 1% now. We're never taking people out of the cockpit. Yeah. Ever. You want that decision in there. But we do need a defense. We need a seawall for, like, are we going to have operators in the future? And we also need a method of getting to 10 decisions a week instead of one. Combination of both, but always human in the loop.
My point was simply going to be the cognitive decline already exists. This is not going to create it. It's the opposite. It's the one that retains knowledge so that it can pass on forward. Right now, that's our biggest issue. We're not able to retain that knowledge and pass it on forward. The cognitive decline won't be caused by AI. It's actually already existent in the plant.
Paul Miller from Forrester. Thank you all very much. Very impressive. It was very good to see the talk about workflows and respecting and understanding the workflow and the process that's already there. The workflow and the process that's already there uses tools and applications that are already there. How do you plug into those?
That's a good question.
Yeah, Bryce, do you want to take the mic? No, I'm serious. Please, go ahead.
All right. Hi, I'm Bryce Bartman, Head of Forward Deployed Engineering at Applied Computing. So, yeah, for the last 7 or 8 years, I've been tackling this problem where we need to be able to apply AI to the existing landscape, the one that you talk about. So the tooling that Kel talked about, that SCADA system, there's actually a whole ecosystem of tools that also sit around that have been around since the 90s, and those aren't going away. If we wanted to wait for the modern era to hit there, we're not going to be able to have a business that's going to be able to solve a problem. So we have a different product that we call Orbital Data Connect, which is actually all about targeting and running inside that ecosystem to be able to connect into those tools. So working with your existing industrial landscape that you have to acquire the data from that or to interact with that data so that we can keep that existing workflow there, but augment it with the AI that sits on top of it. So it's, in the AI world, it's kind of like the MCP skills, tools, those kinds of things. We're building one that can run on a Windows 32-bit machine because we know that that has to happen. We can't wait for it to all run on Linux. That's just too far away. So that's how we're trying to solve that problem. And we're doing a lot of work actually with KBR. They give us a lot of exposure to those types of tools that can help us integrate with them. And we've been doing our first deployments of that into some of the industrial plants that they have. So it's been really exciting. Yeah.
What this has just reminded me of, by the way, thank you, Bryce. What you've seen up here is representative of like 10% of all of the amazing work that's gone on in the past year by every single person within applied computing. Genuinely, every single person is really running at the very bleeding edge of what's possible in their own discipline, and building tools and systems that augment and accelerate the core intelligence, which is Orbital. Like that, Bryce's Orbital Data Connect is ferociously performant. It's a wonderful piece of technology that we could do 3 hours on its own. So next year demo day will be 4 days. Look forward to that. Is there any more questions?
Yes. Sorry, I've just got a quick question. It's more of a marketing or go-to-market question. The energy industry is pretty conservative, and it takes them a long time to take on new technologies generally. In certain areas, they're very far thinking forward, but they don't know what they don't know about AI. And I agree with your model in terms of like the workflow and also the domain specificity of it. But there are other people out there that are talking about, I'm going to be able to generate a process engineer for you or a mechanical engineer in terms of the way to solve a problem or take that AI approach forward. Can you just comment on the differences of approach potentially on that? Because that's what I think is...
So, yeah, absolutely. This is Dan and Sam combined because it's AI and it's industry.
Yeah, 100%. I think... So look, I've had the benefit of watching this industry for the best part of 20 years, as I know you have. And I think the challenge has been, there's been a lot of hype, tons of hype. If you go back to the early days, it was all about everyone's going to embed R and Python into visual workflows. And then you had, we're going to build these IoT platforms, C3 IoT, Baker's going to rule the world by rolling it out to everybody. Palantir, BP, going to dominate, going to take over everything. Cognite, now combining, of course, with Aviva, driving the next generation of data management of the industry. It's been the same kind of hype cycle every time. I think what I found, and obviously I was sat the other side of the table buying these things not so long ago, what I've always found is there's an enormous discrepancy between hype and marketing and reality. And the actual impact when you scratch the surface is pretty minimal. There's been some big successes in predictive maintenance, there's been some good stuff in safety, there's been a few good outcomes in optimization, but it's all been point solutions, specific use cases, targeted outcomes. Our approach, I think, is different in the sense that what we're trying to do is say, we're not going to go after the massive hype, we're not going to go after, what I call the spray and pray strategy, right? We've got a process engineer, everyone please use it. We're going to work with customers and partners to really understand the industry in depth, to build AI at the heart of their workflows, and to demonstrate profound impact on the back of that. That's, in my view, how you build trust. And I think the industry is not dumb. If they see impact and they see that it's going to change the game, they will do it. What we have at the moment is deep skepticism because they've had so much hype, so much promise, and not enough outcomes. And so for me, what we're trying to do is be as Cal says, the anti-hype AI company, where we say we're going to be super focused, we're going to demonstrate it working, we're going to make sure that it sticks, and then we're going to scale it up. And we're going to scale it up through effective distribution, through effective partner strategies, through embedding engineering with partners like KBR at the heart of what we do, and through thinking about the human adoption of the technology. And I think if we're able to do that, we will see the impact and we will see adoption. Because ultimately, like I said, people are looking for this. They want it. Every customer conversation I have, they're looking for something that's transformational, and they don't see the path. And I think we're showing what the path looks like at small scale with our partners, with our customers. The next step is taking that to scale.
My answer will mostly echo what you said, but I mean, in our case, from a product standpoint, I think, as you've also alluded to, the industry is littered with a lot of products that have come in, become dashboards, and sent some models when left it all to the user to configure, with God knows how many features. Sort of like I guess a Microsoft product. But the industry is littered with that.
Good.
And
my mic on.
Do we have anyone from Microsoft?
No, I was just going to say it's a really good company to start a fight with. Yeah.
But so there's three things we targeted when we started this. Essentially, was we have to be ruthless behind what value we're delivering and be ironclad towards that to the customer. Because if we can't prove that, then there's no need for another AI product to be added to their docket and their sheet. They will never pay for it unless you can impact their bottom line. And the difference was we need to be able to prove to the bottom line, which has always been our statement. It's not AI that feels good, it's AI that genuinely has to impact the bottom line. And until we prove that, we are ready to go the rounds for it, essentially. And that's the level of authenticity we essentially took, is that side of the world, because we were never from the energy industry, nor do we know how to sell like the energy industry does. All we know is scientifically how do we deliver the impact to the bottom line, and that's essentially the ethos we also go forward with.
I've got another view on that too. So you asked what's the difference between what we're doing and why we're taking this approach versus here's your co-pilot, go work with your virtual engineer. Yeah, so no, I'm vibing with you. So what we've not been explicit in verbalizing or contextualizing in this room, everything you've seen Orbital do or can do, the model's the same. It's the exact same. You've seen a bunch of different screens. What Orbital is reasoning. It's not a search engine, it's not RAG, it doesn't help you access documents faster. It provides reasoning, which is the difference. Your engineering co-pilot, is going to pull your engineering documents and your shift notes and your X, Y, and Z so that you can get to the data or the information faster. It will never reason with you and think with you, And that's what Orbital is. That's why it's so transferable. It's a reasoning engine rather than RAG or a typical language model, etc.
Hi, thanks. Anna Ballantyne from S&P. Just a question, I guess, on that point as well, in terms of, I know you mentioned the MCP connectors earlier. Do you sort of foresee building out tools so people can tweak your agents and your agentic flow as well? And I get back to that question, I guess there's some people that from an engineering perspective that might go, well, actually, I could build an agentic flow. I could put those provenance documents and meta skills in it as well, and I could build that whole kind of AI council, and we could go around, we could iterate, we could get the provenance. What's the sort of moat, the USP that you see that's different, and will you allow that flexibility? Maybe you've obviously built the agents in a very deterministic way, but do you sort of foresee people sitting with MCP tools on top of Databricks, calling your agents, and then building out their own sort of sub-agents potentially as well?
So the moat is reasoning. We should be integrated with Seek, Falcor, Cognite, Palantir. The list goes on and on and on and on. We provide reasoning, or Orbital provides reasoning. The ability for engineers to begin to play with Orbital in a self-serve product, I'm hoping at some point late next year, early the year after. For now, what we're focused on, does Orbital create value everywhere it's deployed? Meaning, is it generalizable? Is it valuable? Is it anti-hype? That's what we're focused on right now. But yeah, reasoning via tokenized reasoning would be the path forward, with the ability to adapt, amend, and and integrate that reasoning into whatever the engineer envisages.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, from a market perspective, 100% yes. I think you saw the start of it with what Arjun was showing with the ability to edit the workflow. We get it. Like, there's no way that we're going to replace many of the tools that already operate in this workflow. The classic one, which we're working on with KBR today, is simulators. We're still going to need simulators. There's no, in my view, there's no way that those things are going away. They're so fundamental to the engineering workflow. And when you don't have data context, simulation is the right answer. There are plenty of other examples, highly specialized configuration tools for project design. You could talk about examples where the engineers have specific spreadsheets that have been built up over years with very precise understanding of the exact mechanisms for specific types of corrosion. It's crazy to think that the AI is going to be able to just magically come up with all of that. It's not. It's maybe if Sam cracks, general intelligence, which might happen. But until that point, we're still going to need these tools. And so our strategy from a product perspective, as Arjun showed, is exactly that. We want to make it extensible. We're starting on that journey already. We've got some ideas of how we're going to do that. But the aim is that we want to be able to integrate and augment Orbital with whatever else the engineer feels they need as part of the workflow, that they can include that as part of the workflow, either as a validation step for what the AI is generating, or alternatively as a new step in the process for something that they need to analyze, and then to be able to include that end to end and have that all part of the same workflow that Sam was showing.
I guess the other question is where do you see yourself in that orchestration layer? Are you a submodel within a bigger orchestration layer, or are you owning the orchestration?
I think that depends on the customer. I think the big thing for me is, look, I'm having sat on the customer side, what I recognize is that customers are going to have an ecosystem of tools. Our strategy is that we want to be, as Cal said, the best reasoning layer, the best physics-inspired AI, and the most focused on the energy sector of any of the AI companies out there. Whether that means we're a part of the ecosystem or whether we're the orchestration layer, I think that's going to depend on the customer, honestly. I think different customers are going to look at their landscape in different ways and adopt different strategies. One of the things we continually talk about as a team is we want to be agnostic. We will work with anybody. As Cal said, whether it's a Seek or a Spotfire or a Falcor or whatever else it is, we will make sure that we integrate with it, we connect to it, we work well with it. And ultimately, we want to be open APIs, open data foundation. Ideally, at the data foundation, certainly open source as well. And so that's kind of core to our philosophy and the way that we're doing this. We want to make sure, and again, this is the things that I bang on the team about. When I was sat on the other side of the fence, this stuff drove me nuts because the vendors would come in and say, you can use my tool, but you're locked in for 1,000 years, and no, I can't integrate with anybody else. It's a complete disaster because you spend your whole time paying expensive systems integrators to connect your landscape. We are going completely the opposite way. We'll be open, we'll be collaborative, we'll integrate with anything, and we'll take our place in the ecosystem with the customers that we work with.
Thank you. Jan Burian from ARC. Speaking of openness and collaboration, what about your cloud strategy? Is there most of those types of vendors that go like a multi-cloud, right, announcing those partnerships, AWS and the others? Most of the customers, clients, right, from industrial environments, they actually very interested into that, because maybe one more point from my perspective that would be also useful. I mean, you answered most of those questions, right? But to understand, looking at the layers of the data, context, model, applications, right? To have really some a graphical, let's say, showcase. How that really where Orbital really sits. But back to my question: what about the cloud strategy?
Great question. For us, the key thing from a cloud perspective is that we have to be cloud agnostic, because if you look at most of the customers, most of them have 2 clouds. Some of them have 3 clouds. Some of them have 4 clouds or 5 clouds, depending a little bit on who you're talking to and exactly where they sit in the world. And there's different flavors of cloud within that as well. Now, for us, the challenge is back to what I was saying, we have to meet the customer where they're at. Our internal cloud is AWS. We have a go-to-market partnership with them. All of our development runs on AWS, but we're not tied to AWS in terms of customer deployment. We will meet the customer wherever they're at in terms of their internal cloud strategy, and we don't want to be dictating to the customer which cloud they should choose. That's also why we love Databricks, because Databricks runs on every cloud. It cuts across, they're already cloud native in all of these environments, running highly performant, highly effective infrastructure. By building on top of that, it makes it super easy for us to be cloud agnostic.
That is, thank you, Chap. That was a super, super engaged Q&A. Really, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for being here today. I can't thank you enough for paying attention while we walk through each of our sections. Can't thank you enough for such an engaging and real Q&A. Like that was cool, and except yours, Andy. You know, you set us up with an I think we're going upstairs to grab some drinks and hang out just now. So I'll look forward to seeing you all up there, and I look forward to seeing you all again next year. Thank you again, and thankfully it didn't get too hot.